And joining us today on Bottom Line is the junior senator from the state of North Carolina, the Honorable Thom Tillis of Mecklenburg County. Senator Tillis, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Well, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Washington. We've heard a lot about health care. The House has passed a package now. What are the next steps? What's likely to take place in the Senate?
Well, we'll take the House bill. That'll be instructive to a Senate baseline that we're working to get the 51 votes for the members of the conference, and then we'll go into conference with the House and put something on the president's desk, I'm hoping by early summer.
What are the things that the business community should be watching for in what the Senate puts in its health care package?
I think we're going to focus a lot on maybe providing a little bit more definition around the increased emphasis on the states running Medicaid programs. How do you deal with the states who expanded Medicaid under Obamacare and give them a glide path that makes sense, that's fiscally sustainable? How do you work with the other states, the majority who didn't expand under Obamacare, so that we don't disrupt the health care system as we make the transition? And we'll almost certainly have to go slower than any one of us wants to, but we have to do it so that we don't create disruptions that are costly to the consumers.
One of the next big things in Congress, of course, will be the discussion of a federal budget and probably some discussion about tax reform. What are the key issues in those subject matters do you think the business community in North Carolina needs to be attentive to?
We have to focus on the things that are going to be the most immediate stimulative impacts on the economy. We can do broader-based tax reform after we get the economic fundamentals down, but right now businesses are not investing. We're not growing the job numbers the way we need to. We need to get those economic levers moving in the right direction. So we'll broaden the base. We'll probably work on repatriating offshore profits and use that as a funding mechanism for infrastructure. But right now it's a time to simplify and make some first step tax reform moves, and then more comprehensive reform as we go forward.
You know, another thing that the businesses that I talk to are really concerned about are continued efforts to reform regulatory systems in the federal government. What are some of the key issues there?
Well, the first thing we've done is put a pause on what was really out of control regulatory agencies over the last 8 years. So we also repealed several regulations as President Obama and his administration were going out the door through the Congressional Review Act that saved nearly $70 billion a year in regulatory costs. We've got to focus on that because, Joe, we saw what emphasis on that did for North Carolina in 2011 through 2014. It really created economic activity that then funded what's some of the most comprehensive tax reform done by any state. So I think if we use that kind of model, reduce the regulatory burden, not repeal all regulations, but right-size them, and only regulate when you need to, not because you can. And that was more or less the philosophy of the prior administration. Regulatory costs went through the roof, and uncertainty associated with new regulations were preventing businesses from taking risks and creating jobs.
You know, something you've taken a real leadership position on is immigration reform, specifically worker visas. Tell us a little bit about that initiative.
Well, I've come up with a strategy that makes both extremes of the ideological spectrum angry, so I know I'm onto something smart. What we've got to do is get guest worker visa programs, the sorts of things that we need to provide employment that helps create American jobs, and to have reasonable sorts of frameworks for people to apply for a work visa, apply for whatever visas make sense. We need to go through, analyze the visa programs, find out where the abuses exist, where they do, implement changes, step up enforcement for employers to make sure that they are following the letter of the law, and then we can solve this immigration problem that's been a problem for 40 years. Republicans and Democrats have failed to fix it. They've actually made it more costly and more difficult.
Is there a particular sector of the economy you hear from the most on this issue?
No, actually, I think you hear it at both ends of the spectrum. You have the high-tech STEM workers. We've got a shortage there. If we don't fill those jobs, we will lose American jobs as a result of it. You got the other end of the spectrum, seasonal workers, agricultural workers, hospitality, project-based construction, are all areas where they don't have the resources they need. And I think that there's a balance. We need to create transparency so that we can find people who may be abusing a visa waiver program. But the vast majority of people are just looking for folks so they can open their business and employ more people.
Well, do you find when you talk to North Carolina business leaders that there are other issues that they're confronting, things that they want to see Congress focus on?
I think the regulatory and tax discussion is almost exclusively what they want to talk about. They need certainty. The way you get certainty is to understand what your regulatory burden and challenges may be, and what your tax obligation is going to be. Those are the two key things that businesses are concerned with and expect us to produce a result.
Well, now you've been in the U.S. Senate now for a few years. You're getting a sense of how the body operates. Any surprises, anything that you found, or a particular challenge, or wish that there was more of a conversation on issues that impact businesses?
Well, there have been some who have criticized me for this, but I am one who's really pushing for compromise. You know, when I was in the North Carolina House, I don't think that many people understand how many of our most impactful, enduring pieces of legislation were through bipartisan cooperation. The lack of that, it's not surprising to me because you could hear the rhetoric, but sooner or later, somebody has to step up and say the American people want a result. They don't want to carry just one flag that's Republican or one flag that's Democrat. They want us to produce results. That's what they elected us for. And I think sometimes people shift their focus away from that. It sounds simple, but getting 60 votes in the Senate is a challenge. But when we get 60 votes, it's almost always balanced and enduring, the outcome. It's these things that are partisan measures that tend to be on the books 1 year and off the books 2 years later, and that's not good for the economy. That's not good for certainty, which drives economic growth.
Well, you know, when you were Speaker of the State House of Representatives, certainly a well-earned reputation for being deliberative and thoughtful and pushing hard for things that mattered, that made a difference.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with the slightly more sluggish pace of the U.S. Senate?
Well, I had a senator ask me about a year into it, how would I compare the Senate to the North Carolina House? I told him like I would compare a microwave and a crock pot. They cook things more slowly up there, but the stakes are high. I mean, we're making national defense decisions. We're talking about the largest healthcare system in the world in the VA. We're talking about very challenging subjects that rightfully require more time. It's just when people use the time argument for something that they just don't really want to get to because it's a tough vote. People elected us to make tough decisions, to fix health care, to fix taxes, to reform regulations, and I'm prepared to make those votes, just like we did in the State House.
Well, you've been back in the state now for a little bit, traveling around, talking to local business leaders. What are some of the things you're hearing specifically from people trying to operate an enterprise here in North Carolina? What do they see as the necessary priorities?
They say time and time again that they're taking so much of their time dealing with the state and federal governments, the local governments, that it's taken away from their businesses. These are small businesses. The businesses that create 80% of the jobs in North Carolina cannot handle the regulatory burden. They talk about taxes, but it's almost always after some horror story about a regulator that descended on their business, that distracted them away from actually growing their business and paying their employees. So I think it's a very simple message, and if we don't overcomplicate it, if we just focus on the basics, reg reform, tax reform, immigration reform, we will see enormously positive consequences in a very short period of time.
What is your message to business leaders across the state? How can they help you champion the cause of some of these reforms that will make it a little easier for them to do business?
Every time I meet with a business person, I say, go back to your business, meet with your employees, and ask them to think about anything that's requiring them to behave a certain way because of a federal regulation. Ask themselves, is this the most efficient way to, if you agree that if something should be regulated, is it the most efficient, leanest way to do it? Give us that feedback, because those are the singles and doubles that we can work on while we're dealing with all these big, complex issues. I want to get around the horn. Most baseball games are not won by home runs. They're won with bases, base hits. I want to do some base hits while I'm there, and then we'll get to the bigger picture items when we get 51 votes and move it to the president's desk.
Well, now as a representative of North Carolina, you're meeting with leaders from all across the country and all across the world, quite frankly. What do you tell people? What's special about North Carolina? What's the message you give about why we're such a good state, such a good place to do business?
We have an education system unlike any other in the nation, and even world leaders, when I've met with them and I've traveled abroad, they talk about our university system. We have great workforce development with our community colleges. We have a lean tax system now, a lean regulatory system, and it's showing up in the job creation. We've just heard about Credit Suisse this past month expanding their operations in the Raleigh area. MetLife's about to expand again. Our batting average with with corporate expansions and corporate relocations is pretty high. And North Carolina's on the map, and I was proud to be a part of getting them there.
Senator Tillis, thank you for being on Bottom Line.
Thank you.